please put your virtual hand up and we will unmute you. You can do this by going to the participants button at the very bottom of your screen and clicking the blue button. If you would like to ask a question, but you just don't want to speak, you can also send it in the chat and one of our team members will ask it for you. TEDx team members will have the little TEDxUCSD badge next to their names, or myself as a moderator, or Vibob as a moderator as well. Elizabeth Salaam, if you weren't able to see her talk, or if you did see her talk, you know that her talk is about risk and about taking risks in life and jumping into the things where you never thought were possible. Vibob, have any words?
Absolutely. I think Elizabeth's talk really, spoke to me, and I think it very much resonated with me. And I think the idea of, being risk-taking and having courage was deeply like a beneficial thought to me. But with that, I think I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Vaibhav, the other TEDx moderator for this talk. And moving forward, our co-directors would like to introduce themselves as well.
Hello, I'm Annika. I'm one of the TEDxUCSD co-directors.
And hi, I'm Serene, and I'm the other co-director, and we're really excited to have Elizabeth here today.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So Elizabeth, we always really like to ask our speakers about this, but talk us through how you created your talk. What inspired you? What inspired you to make the talk? What was it like curating and bringing your thoughts together?
Okay. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So the question, sorry, I got distracted by the whole mute situation. What was it like putting the talk together? What was the process, I think is the question. Yeah, it was, gosh, it was an experience for sure. I learned a lot. I knew the story that I wanted to tell, which was about the photo shoot. So that story came first, kind of, and the idea, I kind of had to like explore why I wanted to tell that story and what the what kind of the heart of it was, and it just kind of developed from there. I was able to see the process of writing it. I learned so much about myself, that some of the insights that that I came through writing the talk. Yeah, it was a really cool experience.
That's awesome. We're really happy that you were able to have such a good experience on just even writing a talk or even thinking about that. Had you ever considered giving a TED talk before? Have you ever thought about it? Was it ever like a pipe dream of yours somewhere? Did you ever think about like taking a risk somewhere along the way? Haha, get it? To be able to just like give a TED talk somewhere along the way?
Oh gosh, that wasn't even something that I could conceive of. I mean, it just never would have occurred to me to even imagine it. And here we are. I mean, I do love speaking. But I never would have imagined. It's been very exciting for me.
Awesome. Well, we're really glad to have you, and we're really glad that you were able to give your talk. The first question that we have for you is, how important do you believe it was to look back at your childhood and find lessons that were congruent with your authentic self and your personal values?
Yeah. I think it's an important part of, well, I mean, I honestly don't think that it's necessary. but I think it's helpful. Yeah, I do a lot of creativity work, and like with the Artist Way and Julia Cameron, and in her books and workshops, there's a lot of going back and thinking about the things that made you happy as a child, or the things that you loved to do. And I have found that doing that work has completely opened me up and kind of reminded me of who I am and who I always have been. And so it's just become part of my process in kind of sifting through the kind of all of the options. Like, there's so many options in any, I don't just kind of like, what do I want? The question, what do I want, I think is a hard one sometimes to answer. What do I want? What do I like? And doing that kind of work to go back and figure out what I used to like, what I used to allow myself to want and to love, that I feel is really helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Just another question here. What with trying to find what you want to do, when you're doing so is rather scary and fear is involved. And so a question I have here is, how many times do you have to face the same fear such that it's no longer scary, such that it's, it becomes comfortable for you? At which point are things still life-changing, essentially?
Yeah. That's a good question. I have come to understand that things don't stop being scary, and it's not the thing that I become comfortable with. It's the discomfort that I just come to learn to accept and even appreciate, and even kind of get, I don't know, enjoy. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but just accept and be open to. It is, I feel like as a writer, one of the things that helps me move through uncomfortable situations is I hear myself telling the story of it. And so that separates me a little bit from the like the terror or something. Like, I hear myself sort of describing the experience that I'm having, and it allows me to move through it in a more just like, okay, I'm terrified right now. and yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it does. I think for me, things don't stop being scary. It's that I'm just getting more comfortable with being scared.
Yeah, I think the fear is always there, but I think like your ability to risk take, and once you get better and better at that, is like really that defining factor. And so we have a question from the audience right here. We have a question from Stephanie Eisenberg, and she's asking, what's the best piece of advice for someone who's scared of taking risks?
Yeah. I would say start small. I think that, sort of defining what a risk is. A risk isn't necessarily jumping off a cliff into water. I mean, that is a risk, but just the smallest risks of maybe, I mean, it sounds tiny, but taking a different route home, honestly, like just getting out of your comfort zone in the smallest little ways, kind of can just kind of build a little bit, it just builds upon itself. I had an experience where I was terrified. I'm terrified of water, of like ocean water. And but I really love being by the beach. So I would go and I would walk on the beach and I would see these people swimming in the water. And for a time, I wished I could be them. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the beach and I'm going to just kind of go in up to my knees or whatever. And then, and even that honestly was really scary for me. But eventually, like as I would be there, seeing other people doing it, and it kind of made my desire to do it. It just kind of like, and then I would go and I still get like sort of heart beats when I go into the water, but I don't know, over time, I've just built up, taken the tiniest little steps to do it. And now I love to play in water, but I'm still scared.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, yeah, I myself used to be really afraid of water too. So, point on that. Another, what is it? Thank you to Stephanie for that question, actually. And I have another question here from the audience, from Coco. How do you come to terms with taking risks or regrets, or like do you have any regrets about a risk that you didn't take in your life?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. I don't really have regrets. That is such a good question. I don't really think that I have regrets about risks that I didn't take. Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question? I got stuck on the regrets and I forgot the rest of what the question was.
Yeah, no problem. How do you come to terms with risks, and did you have any regrets about not taking a certain risk?
How do I come to terms with taking risks? I just kind of do. I mean, I think not focusing on the outcome and not focusing on, I don't know, taking risks that are comfortable. Like, yeah, I feel like it's important to just take risks enough that, I don't know, that are like just outside the comfort zone, not necessarily to try to go too far outside. And yeah, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's what I got.
Awesome. So we actually have one question from a TEDx member, Ayushi, and she's asking if you think that is comfort like a bad thing. Stepping out of your comfort zone is really important, but how does it feel to sort of, be in that comfort zone, and how do we kind of navigate that, and what do we label that as?
Yeah, I don't think comfort is a bad thing at all. I think comfort is beautiful. I think it's wonderful. And I'm married to somebody who is very, very comfortable at home, loves it, and doesn't have the same needs I have for people or adventure. And I think that like how you feel and what, like, if you're comfortable not taking risks, then I don't think that you should take risks. But if you feel that there's a longing for something more, I have this, like, okay, here's a regret. when my husband and I first got together, we he did a lot to make me happy. I mean, he always has, but we went to a pool party, and I sort of, I guess I kind of pressured him, like, come on, like, liven up, be the party guy. And so but he's really low key. He's a very low key guy. And so he does not like water. He doesn't like pools, but he had somebody throw the football, and he, caught it and landed in the water. And it broke my heart to see that was not him. It's not, he's like, was really wanting to be that guy in that moment, but not really. And I learned at that time that, like, maybe jumping in the water when he was uncomfortable was a risk, but it wasn't a risk that suited him. It didn't fit. And I think that it's important to take risks if you want to take risks, not that you should. I found myself, like, really just deadened by the rut of a routine. I'm somebody who needs to be engaged and in novelty. And so, the risk-taking thing suits me. And I think that you kind of know when you need more. And
cool. Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. That you shouldn't have to like push yourself to that limit. But there's another question I got from Coco that about the risks that you didn't take. We keep on talking about the risks that we do take and what we do see, and what there are many moments where you're too scared to take those risks, and you end up letting that chance go. Could you elaborate on maybe experiences in your life where that might have happened?
Yeah. Yes, I would say when I decided to go to graduate school, I had two options. One, I could leave New York and go basically on a full ride to a school in New Orleans, or I could stay in New York and have sort of all of the connections and everything that came from being in this sort of like center of the universe that New York is. And so I stayed in New York, and I did not take advantage of those connections. I did not, I think I didn't feel worthy, and I don't know if you all have heard Lydia Yuknovich's TED Talk, but it's about being a misfit. But she talks about going to New York and having all of these opportunities that she didn't take, and I really, really relate to that. I feel like I just wasn't ready to kind of trust, I don't know, to take the risks required to make the connections and kind of, I don't know. Yeah, that's a regret, I think. And I just, move on from it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you always have to keep learning from your regrets and evaluating the decisions that you make and the decisions that you didn't. So with that, I actually would like to introduce Serene. She has a question for you.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Elizabeth. I know you mentioned earlier that when we called on you to do the TEDx, talk, you knew what you wanted to talk about. So I guess my question is, what inspired you to tell this story now?
Yeah. What inspired me to, well, you know, the photo shoot story, really, it was a really big experience for me. It was, so yeah, what inspired, so do you like, I guess I don't.
So I guess I can frame the question a bit differently, but what made you talk about that experience now rather than writing about it previously, or sharing that story in a different realm, I guess?
Do you mean the photo shoot story, or do you mean like the whole, yeah? Or like,
well, yeah, I mean the photo shoot story as well, but also like, I guess all of it together.
Yeah. I think I just was so much, because the photo shoot happened in October. And so it's kind of a new revelation for me, like this, having the experience and being so distraught, and then finding my way out through art is really, I'm deep in it. I'm deep in it right now. It's new, it's fresh. And then just that's where I was when you invited me here. And so, yeah, that's, and I just, and yeah, it's good timing.
I mean, seems to be of the essence, isn't it? Timing is what makes things happen in the world these days. Timing did not say, it was timing where we finally decided that we were going to hold a virtual event instead of a live event. So, but everything works out, as we can see here. So that's always a good thing, to have good timing as well. We do have a comment from the audience, a member of the audience, Raylene. She sent in a little message to you, and she essentially said that her experience, her own life experience, she was very touched by your talk because she was able to relate to it so much. I'd like to invite her to, if she would like to, be able to talk to you about that, unmute, and possibly even ask a question on that.
Please.
Really?
Hi. Hi, Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to let you know that your talk really resonated with me when you talked about your experience with your dad, because I could relate to that, because my dad was an alcoholic, and after my mom died, his drinking got worse, and I was about 9, and I wrote him a letter just saying how worried I was about him. I didn't have the courage to do what you did. I didn't talk about it, but I wrote a letter, and I think the courage that it takes, I really saw that courage in you. That was amazing. And even though it puts you in a position of, you're a kid, so it really puts you in a vulnerable spot. Some people are going to believe you, some won't, whatever. I never really talked to my dad about it. He never sat down with me. He thought that my stepmom put me up to writing the letter. But anyway, even though none of that got resolved, I think the bravery that it took on your part was amazing. And I see your talk about really being about standing up for yourself, more so than risk, I guess. And you talked about later on that there are places in your life where you felt, God, am I really worthy? Or, should I have a voice? And bravo, you have a voice. So thank you. Thank you for your talk.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate hearing that. And my heart goes out to you, and having, I hope that you have some place to, I don't know, sort through or, heal from your experiences.
Thanks. Yeah, I've gone on to become a therapist and have been in therapy a lot, and I'm in a really good place now. But
Great.
yeah, I think when someone is wounded in a certain way, like you were, and like I am, I think that kind of brings you relate to that person. There's something about them. So I think that's a positive thing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I do kind of, I still have a little bit of worry about this talk, about it being too much or just too much, too out there. And it means everything to me to know that it has reached somebody who who can maybe, I don't know, be touched by it. And so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Raylene, for giving your input and giving such nice comments and having a real conversation with us here on this platform. Elizabeth, you're not only through your talk are you able to communicate with others and share your own story and the many stories that you've given us here today, but your career as a writer, you also communicate with people and you're able to share stories. We have a question from the audience from Annabelle asking, is your career as a writer a result of risk or possibly even multiple risks that you have taken?
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. Yes, when I first came to San Diego, my husband would read the San Diego Reader, and they had this where you could get paid to find typos. And so he would go through and find the typos and read the story, read it front to back. And they had there was a neighborhood, you could write about your neighborhood contest. And he was like, Lizzie, you should do this. So I did it and I won 3rd place. And then I did it again and I won 2nd place. And the person who would reach out to me to let me know was a man named Ernie Grimm. And so I was new in town. I didn't really have a job. I mean, I had a job tutoring, but not really much of a job. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to email this guy and ask him for a job. So I emailed him and I said, hey, I'm looking for work. Do you have anything? And he said, no, I don't have a job, but you can pitch stories to me anytime. And so I proceeded to pitch to him pretty much every day until he said yes. I mean, I was like, okay, how about witches in San Diego? Okay, how about roller derby? I mean, I just was like one thing after the next. And I had never really done anything like that. And it was definitely a risk. But I just kept at it. And now we've been working together for 10 years. So yeah.
Wow, I really like that story because it seems like such a lighthearted memory, but it's also associated with you kind of stepping out of that comfort zone. So that's really awesome to hear that. And I have another audience question from Alan Lee. And his question is, do you think that there's a sense of liberation that comes after taking a risk and being true to yourself, like you did with your photo shoot? And if so, how would you describe that sense of liberation? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely a sense of liberation. How would I describe it? I would describe it as like this like exhilarating. I remember I wrote a story when I was in college. It was my first short story, and I like was up all night in the computer lab and I remember when I finally completed it, it was probably 2:30 in the morning, and I ran through campus like high, just so high. And that to me is what it feels like. Um, it's like, I don't know, it's exhilarating. I find.
Yeah, that sense of exhilaration is like, I feel can be in the big moments and in the small moments. So thank you, Alan, for asking that question. And then I guess we have one more question from the audience. And it is from my little brother. Do you want to ask the question to me? Unmute you.
Hi. So my question was, has like taking risks informed your creative process for writing? Because I'm also into writing a lot as well. And like, has it changed it from anywhere from that? So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, taking risks in writing has, taking risks in all of the creative process. I think for me, probably in writing, it's a little bit scarier. I feel like I have been taking the risks that I've been taking out in the world in order to be able to go in and take these risks in writing. I think that I have really high expectations of what's supposed to happen on paper. And I think that it's a lot easier to take risks when I don't have those expectations. And so when taking the risk itself is the thing rather than the outcome. I think a lot more about the outcome when it's writing. But I have found that in art in general and in the creative process, the risk is really turning yourself over to it and allowing the like getting out of your head about it. Yeah, that's exciting that you're doing writing. What can I ask? What kind of writing is it like?
I'm really into screenwriting actually. I'm really into films, so I've been doing writing and screenplays, especially now. So yeah.
That's great. And are you making the films yourself?
Not right now, but that's the plan. Hopefully, once we open up more, I'll start getting in contact with some of my friends who are also into filmmaking and kind of film some of the stuff.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I say take the risks. Just go for it. As big and crazy and like just go for it. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually a bucket list item for me, is write and direct and make my own film. Yeah, that's a bucket list item. That's a later me kind of thing. We do have another question from one of the members of our team, actually. Monica, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, Elizabeth. So you were saying earlier about your career and the challenges, and you mentioned earlier about hating following to quote unquote the rut. As someone who does creative writing myself, I know that writer's block can be extremely real. So what are some of the challenges that you come across whenever you get into that state, and how do you cope or bounce back?
Yeah. Yes. For me, it's overthinking, just being in my head. That's the biggest block for me. And honestly, getting outside is is very helpful for me. Just because I just find that like being so like laser focused and like trying to think it, I don't know. I just getting outside helps a lot, and also free writing, just allowing myself to just dump, and just I like to write to get at the heart of what I'm feeling about something, and what do I really think, and just in a journal, where I can explore instead of like trying to produce. So for me, getting out of the wheel of production mode, actually kind of like what was it Amin was saying in his TED talk about like stepping outside of the stepping outside his creativity walks and stuff. I feel like it's that kind of resetting that helps a lot. Whatever it is, coloring or, you know, going to play basketball or anything. Did that answer your question, Monica? Okay.
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, that's also on my mind too. Taking a step back, I personally am kind of known as like a workaholic amongst the team here, and so sometimes I even get bogged down with that, not taking that break and getting stuck in that writer's block or stuck in a certain math problem that I'm doing. So thank you, Monica. Another question we have from one of the members of our team, actually, we have a question from Emily. Moving back into into talk and, you know, challenges that we face. Elizabeth, what advice would you give to someone who is experiencing possibly a difficult family life and the risks and challenges involved with family life, especially during now being under quarantine and many of us being with our families for a lot longer now?
That's a good question. I would say, gosh, I feel like I would need to know more to really answer this question. Like difficult family life in quarantine. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what it is that.
Possibly even just in general, just you know, experiencing difficulties in familial relationship, right? I think this specifically, it does apply to a lot more, you know, not to single anyone out, or anything, but with college students, I personally know quite a few friends and where moving back home has become somewhat of an issue, or experiencing just difficulties of just moving back and living with parents again, or just because you're at home quite a bit now. So like, what would you have, you know, what advice would you just have to give with that and about those challenges and facing those challenges head on?
Yeah. Well, see, the way that I have always operated is I definitely have difficulties with family, and for me it's always been about having a space to retreat. So I don't know if that's really facing them head on as much as it is like creating a sense of like a little safety bubble. And gosh, I mean, difficult conversations. it can be very difficult to say, here's what I need. Please don't talk to me in the morning because I'm going to be grumpy and then we're going to get in a fight. I mean, you know, yeah, I can't really imagine. I feel for you. I yeah, these are crazy times, and I mean, I think the only advice I would really give is find the things that like make you feel good, you know, in a healthy way. I mean, you know, get outside to go for a bike ride, or you know, hide out in the bathroom and call your boyfriend. I mean, you know, I don't know. These are definitely challenging times, and yeah, moving back home if you're having difficulties with your family, I think is challenging. I was just talking to somebody over this week, and she was talking about like people in abuse, you know, children who have to stay home in abusive homes right now. You know, like school for some people is a safe space, and so I just feel like that's it's just heartbreaking to think about. Why I brought that up. But I don't know. Sorry. It just makes me really sad to think about that, to think about, you know, not being able to escape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think quarantine specifically, I think it makes you think a lot about like privilege and where, you know, what you're really thankful for. And unfortunately, like family life, that might be an issue for some people, and it really makes you consider, you know, what you're absolutely grateful for. But thank you for the advice. We have a question from Reem, and she asks, uh, in your opinion, what differentiates the fears that ground you and the fears that push you forward?
Mm. That's a good question. The fears that ground you and the fears that push you forward. I think longing. I think longing is um, I think it's longing. What you want. If you're afraid of the outcome, like yeah, if you're afraid of the outcome, or if you want the outcome. Yeah, that's what I would say. That sometimes I think about myself back when I was really like lonely and isolated and depressed, and the visual I have is of myself standing at the window of we have this view, and just standing there looking at the world and really wanting to be in it, just wanting to be part of it, and like being afraid and not knowing how, but wanting it. That versus like, I don't know, the fear, I don't know what kind of fear might ground me right now, but, you know, something that would keep me from putting myself in danger. I think the longing is probably the thing that separates them for me.
Yeah, I think distinguishing between how fear, like how you're kind of grappling with fear and navigating that is really important. And I like that you use the idea of longing to sort of find that clear differentiating factor. And we have another question from a team member, from Hannah. Do you want to say yours out loud, Hannah?
Hi, Elizabeth. I'm wondering if you've ever experienced burnout, and if so, how you got yourself back to yourself.
Yeah, definitely burnout. Yes, I have experienced burnout. And the way that I have gotten myself back to myself is really, like I said before, stepping away, um, going outside, walking, going for a bike ride. Those things have, like, outside for me just has always been a place of freedom where I get out of my head and into just more presence. Um, and I cancel a lot of shit. I cancel, like, because I realize I've made too many plans, and I cancel. I just cancel plans, and I, try to whittle it down to the priorities. The things that have to be done. And even some of those things I might just not do today. Like, I mean, I think that burnout, I take mental health very seriously. And I think it's really easy for us to, look at our to-do list and think that those things are the priority. But for me, um, having a, like, my mental health is so important. And so prioritizing that and kind of like just like getting rid of as much as possible off of my day. I tell myself, okay, this is the only thing that I have to do today. Otherwise, I'm just not going to do anything, honestly. Otherwise, I'm just going to freeze and get sick and, I don't know, eat a lot of donuts. Do things that aren't healthy for me, just because I can't handle it. and I think that we try to handle way more than we should a lot of times. And this quarantine has really helped me see that there's so much that I was filling my life up with that I just didn't have to, and not, I mean, it was fun and good, but like needing to be busy all the time, I just think is an illness.
I, for one, am also busy all the. I relate to that, and I also really would like a donut right now. Thanks for mentioning donuts. We have another question from the audience. Another question from Coco. She asks, "Not everyone has your bravery to tell the truth and risk their current comfort zone, as you did in your talk. Despite knowing the benefits to taking those risks, one might still, lack the courage to do so. Were there any risks that you were, what is some advice that you could give to someone that's simply too scared to take the risks or risk the current situation, or what might happen here?"
Yeah. I would say to find people who are kind of taking risks. I have a friend named Nick who is like, I've never met anybody like her. She just, like, she'll have an idea and just execute. And there's no overthinking. And I am so, like, blown away by a person who does not have to overthink every step before they take action. And I have actually tried to be around her sometimes when I know that I am probably going to try to overthink this thing. I'll just give you an example. My website is brand new. I had an old website, then I wanted to have it updated before all of this. And And I'm a person who would like, you know, okay, I plan and how do I make it perfect and not take any action until I had like the perfect plan and all of the everything. And Nick, so I would like just go work in the space with her, and she'd be like, she's a person who would just be like, okay, I have to write a newsletter right now. I'm just gonna write it and do it, and then it's sent. And so and she does that in big and small ways. And so I put myself around her and see her just doing stuff. And I think I mean, it makes a really big difference to be surrounded by people who are doing the things that either doing the things that you want to do or doing things that that they want to do. Like Nick and I don't do the same things, but her way of being is very inspiring to me. So I would say, yeah, like being around people who are kind of maybe a little braver than me. That helps me.
We always like to rely on our friends and our families to push us further, right? To make us better people. And I usually say this a lot too, where it's like, you want to be a better person tomorrow, you want to be a better person today than you were yesterday. And that's thanks to a lot of the people we surround ourselves with, right? Yeah. So yeah, definitely. My internet connection is unstable. Wow, okay. Another question we have from Emily Louie, very relatable, very, very relatable to our times today. What advice would you give to women who are trying to learn to accept their bodies, as seen through your talk?
Yeah, I honestly, I would say get naked. Get naked. And I actually started doing something that like changed. It was amazing. And this is a little bit out there. But I started late at night. I started doing naked yoga. And it's interesting. So standing in front of the mirror, naked, is like you're just standing and judging. I mean, it's just you're standing, you're going, oh, if I was more this, or if I look, it's a judgment for me. That's my experience. But when I was doing yoga, I don't know, one night it was the middle of the night, nobody was up, and I was like, I really don't want to go change into my yoga clothes, but whatever. So I just put on like a yoga thing, and it was crazy. It was so liberating. And like I caught sight of myself in the fireplace, the glass in front of the fireplace, and it was like it's so weird that I'm sharing this, but it was really like seeing an old friend. It was like, oh, this is what my body looks like when I'm doing yoga, but like it just was interesting. And so I realized that actually doing things nude, as opposed to just looking at myself nude, helps me to see my body as a body and not, and I don't know, it was just kind of more of like a friendly experience than a judgy one. And I would say spend time with yourself. Spend time, like, I mean, I know this is just a little bit weird, but I think that, if we want to get comfortable in our bodies, we have to be able to look at them, right? I mean, we got to be able to, like, I don't know, be in them. And so that would be my advice, is do naked yoga or cook naked, or just kind of like, and that's a risk. Listen, that's a huge risk. Looking at yourself in the mirror, I think if you're uncomfortable, it took me a long time to be able to do that. I am so glad you asked that question, because yeah, and I am again, I want to apologize for being a little out there, but I'm learning that that's just who I am. So thank you, Monica.
No, I think that's super, super cool because you're changing it from, you know, that judging negative connotation to asserting a positive connotation and really accepting yourself. So I find that really beautiful, Elizabeth. But we're gonna do one last question and then we're gonna end it out. And I have a question from Richard, and he says, how do you deal with criticism whenever putting pieces of work out into the public? Does this potential criticism ever stop you or change the type of work you put out into the public?
Yeah, you know what I do? I stopped reading comments. I used to have my husband like sift through them and just give me the good ones. um, and yes, I mean, I like criticism has definitely like stopped me in my tracks before. And I will say that, yeah, it's, that's really hard. And I mean, you know, if it's helpful criticism, great. But I have to just kind of like, I have to just separate myself from what other people think. And I don't do that well. So I have to like actually create boundaries. I'm not somebody who says, oh, I don't really care what other people think, because I really do. And so what I have to do is not listen, is like make sure that I don't, as much as possible, don't hear what other people think, because it really can get in my way and change my process. I mean, it can really hurt me. I hope that helps.
Well,
Yeah, please.
well, thank you, Elizabeth, so much for joining us, for giving your talk, and for sharing your life story with us, and so much more, especially in this Q&A session. And thank you to everyone who has joined in today and was asking questions and really connecting with Elizabeth. We hope that you really enjoyed her Q&A session, and the next event is Amin's Q&A at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Elizabeth, final comments, and would you also like to plug your social media handles?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much. This has been just really wonderful. And I really hope that this is not the last time. You guys are so amazing. You're so cool. And it's been really wonderful to do this with you. And you're just cool. So yeah, I mean, I am EC Salaam on Instagram, and my website is elizabethsalaam.com. And yeah, I don't know. I just, I hope that I can see you all again. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to everyone once again in the chat and in the audience. Please, we hope that you're able to join us at 4 p.m. But thank you, and yeah.